One of the chapters in the book is about a pay-it-forward party or pay-it-forward networking. Tell us all about that. That's a relatively new concept.
Well, and it's just applying this approach of going into networking events with a community service mindset. And it sort of takes the stressors out of this feeling that a lot of people have that you're looking for a handout somehow, that you're going there trying to get help from people you don't know. And yeah, that's stressful. I mean, I don't advise it. And the better approach is to go to these events with the intention of trying to help other people, pay it forward, just see what happens, see if you can help them, see what sort of social capital you can offer them to maybe accelerate their goals. And because of the laws of reciprocity, more often than not, people will ask you in return, well, what about you? You know, Steve, what do you need help with right now? And then you can get your ask out. You can tell them. But the party itself started because I wanted to create a better networking environment for the people I knew as well. And I also wanted to create an event where I could connect all these people that I was meeting. And I wanted it to be easier for me and less expensive, right? Coffee dates cost money, you know, happy hours cost money, I mean, everything. It was getting really expensive to do all that kind of networking. And this was when I had first moved to Seattle and was trying to, you know, build a life and a network. And then I also encountered this phenomenon called the Seattle Freeze, which everyone can Google at some point. And it's just this idea that, especially for introverts, that town can be very difficult to sort of break in and build a real network of authentic connections, right? There's a lot of surface, but it's not that, if you really want to go build a life there, it can be really difficult. Unless you have kids. Kids always help because people's kids play games together. And
so these parties help do that?
Yeah, they were a way to get people together who really wanted to connect with other people, right? Who had that intention of offering help to other people and get together and break the ice.
How does it work? If I have a couple leads that are real specific, like marketing and, I don't know, technical writing or something, do I go to the party and try to find somebody is looking for that? Because I couldn't just lay that on just anybody because it would be irrelevant. Or how would I find who to connect with?
Leads or needs?
Leads. Like a lead for a job. And
so you have the job, or you're looking for the lead?
If part of my going to one of these events and I'm thinking about how I could help somebody is that I have a lead that there might be an opening or something like that, how do I know who to find to tell that to? Because if I just said that to everybody, most of them would say, that's not what I'm looking for.
Well, but when they said to you, or you said why you were there, you would say, well, I've got these job leads and I'm here to try and find people. And what happens is that dynamic of all that networking is somebody says, oh, I just talked to this guy Bob, you should go talk to him.
That's how it works.
Right, and it just makes it so it's more organic, it's more natural. And one of the things about the events was really teaching people how to start these conversations and get into, and I want to offer some of that today because I think they're really helpful in terms of, what made you come to this event is always a great opener. I use the analogy that weddings, we all have a question. We can always ask, who do you know? Is it the bride or groom? Right? When you go to a wedding, everyone can ask that, and that starts the conversation from there. Well, when you go to an event, it's kind of the same thing. Like, what made you come to that event?
Or
there's
have
a
you
million
been to them
things.
before? Or if there's a speaker, have you heard the speaker? Do you know Sandy?
That's right. So all those things about your common ground, and that's that you're at this place together, right? Or what were you doing in Chicago? That's the common ground. It's always easy to start a conversation from there. And then the follow-up, too, is just, well, so what are you working on these days? What's going on in your world? And getting them to talk about that. And then if they don't say something that you recognize that you might be able to help them with, asking them, well, so what do you need help with right now in your life? Is it related to that, or are you doing anything else? And sometimes that question can be difficult for people. Right? Our culture tends to say, what do you do? So what do you do, Steve? Right? And then you're supposed to launch into the elevator pitch. And asking the question, so what are you working on these days, is a question that anyone can answer, and they get to decide how they want to answer it, right? Maybe they don't want to talk about work that night, actually, because it was a bad day. Maybe they're going to say, oh, I'm planning this trip to Australia with my wife.
Yeah, I actually went to an event where somebody didn't want to reveal what they did, so they kind of kept the conversation short.
Yeah, well, So then, I would, go into another direction and just say, well, so what made you come here, though, right?
Yeah.
If you're in stealth mode, like, what is it you're looking for? Because they obviously had some reason that they were there. Maybe they were looking for talent that they were going to, cherry pick from their competitor. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, there's always interesting things like that happening. But another thing I just want to recommend is when a lot of times people are nervous about going to these things.
Yes.
And how do they get in there? What do they do? And big piece of advice is always find the other solo person if you're alone. Look for the people that are also solo. Go up to them and introduce yourself. You will have a friend for life, right? Because that person has the same anxiety. If you're also going to an event, and this is kind of what I'm giving away, like these are all the things I would do at Pay It Forward parties, is I would try and facilitate these type of activities and tips and try and help people. The other is find the host. That was going to be my suggestion, is if you had those leads, when you go to an event, always find the host.
That's a great
and
idea.
just say, listen, thanks for having this event. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm curious. I'm looking for people that need help with social media talent because I just met a bunch of them at a presentation I did. And they will point you, right? They want to make those connections and facilitate. And they want you to have a good time, too. So they're going to go out of their way to help you get started, or say, I'm new to town. I'd love to meet some folks. This is my industry. Who's here that's in that? Those people, that's why they're there. They're going to take you around and help you.
At the C6 meetings we were talking about earlier, they actually have a period where people say, does anybody have any leads?
Right.
But I want to get to the graphic you brought along, the do's and don'ts of networking. So I thought we would show this graphic to the audience. I'll read the bullet points and you can tell us what you think, right? So you say, don't be a business card commando. Focus on quality, not quantity.
Right. Well, we all know these people that you go to an event and you see them there and they are just casing the room. They are just canvassing the room with their cards. They're just waiting for that opportunity to get their card. And what they're really hoping more often than that is to get one of yours. Because they're most likely going to just add you to their newsletter list or their email or their phone list or whatever it is. And that is one of those really awkward things that, we can't stop some people from that behavior. Although I cover these don'ts because I'm trying to get the word out there. But all we can do is model the better behavior, right? In terms of when somebody's doing that to me, I always slow them down and stop them and say, whoa, 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 tell me what, who are you? What are you doing here? What made you come to the event? I try and force them to engage because maybe they just are nervous and this is just what they're doing, or their boss told them they better do it. But I'd really rather see if I can help them and help them focus or target, because...
And not just exchange cards with
them. And a lot of times, sometimes there's people where people say to me, well, what if you don't want to give me your card? And I say, don't. I'm like, just say, I'm really not. I've got another event to go to, and I need what I have left. They have a good raffle for an iPad. Whatever it is, it's this idea of just, you don't have to go there. You don't have to give in to the bad behavior, right, when you encounter it. So we just don't, that's the quality versus quantity thing again, is go there and just try and talk to 3 people. Make that your goal instead of passing out 25 cards.
This seems related to your second point. Don't hit and run. Don't play hit and run. Stay in touch. Use social media and email to do so. So again, that's quality, but can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, and this is the idea that a lot of times people have a great conversation at the event and then they drop the ball afterward. And maybe I told you, I know this article from the Wall Street Journal, I'll send you the link. It speaks to exactly what you're talking about. I'll make sure I do that, whatever. And then I don't, right? It's that you're not doing what you said you were going to do. And it speaks to your credibility, your integrity. It seems like a little thing, but you've spent time with this person, and to not follow up and do that, it's what was the point? Like, don't waste your time, right? You're wasting your time in a sense by not doing the things you need to do. And one of the tricks is always to write on the back of the cards
That's what I was going to ask
what they need, right? And to make sure you do that and keep that stack or those notes, and within the next couple days, make sure you've done that follow-up.
So is that the number one action after the event, is to go through your cards and contact with these people while it's still fresh?
Well, there's 2 things I do. If I've promised stuff, I get that done, right? I make sure those things get done. The other thing, though, that I do is if I really enjoyed the conversation and I feel like it was going to really be a good reciprocal. I know that we travel in the same worlds. We're really going to be able to support each other or help each other. I send all my follow-up through LinkedIn, and I ask for a connection there.
Oh.
And I use that as a tool to say, let's make sure we stay in touch. Because people move around, they change jobs, things change, but everyone keeps their LinkedIn profile up to date
and
now.
some people change their email address too, right?
Right, but in LinkedIn, you make sure the right one's there, so you always have that connection. And you also have a reminder. You have quicker access to their bio and their profile, so you remember who they are, what they need, how you might work together.
And the third bullet point is don't waste your time, be prepared, set goals, do your homework.
Right, so don't waste your time. And this is back to, you're going to go through all this trouble to go to this event. And just walking in there cold or blind is just it's not a good idea. It's just like anything. And I do share that a lot of the stuff I learned through sales training I've had over the years, right? And it's what has made me an effective sales business development person, is that follow-up is king. It's everything. So when you go to the event, you have to do some research, right? That's the other side. That's the queen, right? You have to make sure you've researched who's going to be at the event. Is there anybody here I really want to talk to?
So this is the preparation for the event.
Yes, this is all beforehand. And again, a lot of events you're shelling out money to go there. Like, don't make it such a gamble. Do some work, figure out who's going to be there. And that's another thing, that at that event you can go to those hosts. A lot of times sponsors are great people to approach because they've made it possible for the event to take place. Thank them for that, and explain what drew you to the event and tell them why you're there, and you're wondering if they know who Bob Smith is. Could they help make an introduction? And they'll be happy to take you over there. That's part of why they're there. They're acting as hosts. But again, the research, finding out who's going to be there, and thinking about some goals for yourself beforehand. Sometimes it's trying to meet certain people, but a lot of times it could just be, what do I want to accomplish at this event? And for me, it's always, how many people am I going to try and make a connection with? And maybe there's no exchange of anything yet, but I just really want to meet 3 new people and find out who they are and spend some time with them.
Is that a reasonable total, 3?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, depending on if it's a networking event versus a conference, right? If I were going to a conference, I went to AdTech this year, and it's like 3 days, I set a bigger goal of I want to meet at least 10 people. Now, unfortunately, that wasn't easy to do, because today's world, during breaks and all these other periods, everyone's sitting looking at a screen, right? We rarely are sitting there.
They're not good networkers that way.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. You have to really work around that.
I want to ask you a question that comes up a couple times in your book that I thought was really interesting. The relative importance of in-person networking versus social media. And I certainly know a lot of people, clients included, who hide behind the computers. They say, I networked, but they don't actually talk to a person. What's your feeling about that, and what kind of a balance between the two of them?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have a blog post on my website where I talk about, get out from behind the screen. You have to get up and get out there. Because people, when you network in person, it's an entirely different experience.
It's so much more memorable.
It's memorable. People get a sense of you. You can develop a rapport that way. It's hiding behind the screen. And this is something, I actually did a webinar for a nonprofit in town, and that was one of their big frustrations, that they had all these people who they were trying to help. They had a job board as part of the nonprofit, and people were not going out, and they expected everything to happen online, right? I'm submitting resumes, no one's getting back to me. And they knew that my content was such that, no, it's about get out there. You need to get out there. I think that the online piece is all for the follow-up, right? To me.
You mean setting it up?
No.
What do you mean it's about the follow-up?
It's about using it to follow up, right?
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can do some of it. Like if you know you're going to a conference, you've researched who's going to be there, you can actually do some interesting stuff online, like start following some of those people on Twitter so that you could start to see some of the topics they talk about or things they share, so that when you get to the conference, you can reference those tweets that had gone out and talk about their articles or whatever it was that you read. So it's always about the researching. It's never the actual networking. It's about preparation and follow-up. So you use sometimes the social media or the online tools to do the follow-up, whether it's through LinkedIn, whether it's following then someone on Twitter after you've met them because you found out they were really interesting and had a great content library. That's what I think.